Hello students, I'm Himani Sharma, your UGC NET Paper 1 educator. I welcome you all in this new video where we will be moving forward with the 30-day program, The Last Lap. In the previous videos as well, we have talked about that how with the usage or through this program, we are going to cover some very important concepts which are related to your UGC NET examination, right? And how will we be dealing with those concepts? We will be doing the PYQs side by side, and from the PYQs we will be doing the revision of the most important concepts, right? So grab up your seats, like you want to crack this very UGC NET examination, UGC NET 2023, correct? So let us just look at the questions without wasting any time, that what do we have for today. The first question that we have here is, a research scholar, while finally reporting the research results in the form of a thesis, acknowledge the support of his or her supervisor in the preface. This will be treated as, right? So pause your videos whenever you read a question so that you can read it carefully without any, distraction, and then play the video again to see the answer. The answer to this question is option D. Now let us just see what do we have in option D. We have part of ethicality. Now, if we talk about research ethics, we are supposed to deal with certain things, right? What do we firstly mean by ethics? Ethics are something which are related to the moral behavior, morals, right? So first of all, if anyone wants to do research, even if we want to live a life, we want to follow certain morals, we want to know certain thing is right, certain thing is wrong. Same is the case with the person who is doing his research. He should know whatever he is doing, whatever person he is citing, etc., and whatever data, wherever he is collecting the data from, etc., should be done ethically. And here in the question they have asked that while finally reporting the research results in the form of a thesis, acknowledge the support of his or her supervisor. So obviously when you do PhD, when you do research, you need a supervisor, and under their supervision you conduct your research. And obviously if you are getting gaining some benefit with the help of some other person, you are supposed to either cite them if you are referring to their sources, or if there is a supervisor, you are supposed to cite them. You are supposed to tell, always in the first page, in the preface, you are supposed to, under the provision, under the supervision of this and this teacher, right? So this is because you want to be ethical. It is not done under sheer formality, that you are not doing it just because it's formal in nature, right? Needed formality, it's not the needed formality. And it is not a superfluous. Superfluous means unnecessary act, right? So it is not unnecessary. It is necessary in the fact that because you want to prove that you, through your research, have been ethical while conducting the research, and hence even if you have taken minor help from someone, you are quoting them. And with the supervisor, obviously he or she has been in charge of your whole thesis, in charge of your the process that you were going to do for your PhD. He or she was guiding you, and a person who has helped you should obviously be cited and in the preface, etc., when you are conducting your research after your PhD. Now if we talk about, as we are doing the important concepts with the help of certain PYQs, we should also know, as I told you, that research ethics play an important role, right? So there are certain research ethics of which we will be talking about. Relevant legal and common practice rights should be there, right? Distress to any person should not be there. And a person, right, even if any physical harm, etc., is supposed to be done, it should be minimized to the possible extent. If you are choosing to experiment the person with a drug, etc., right, with certain new medicine, you should minimize the risk of harm. We will be talking about that as well. Fairness, if you are selecting some candidate, you are conducting the research and you are reporting the research findings, right? Clarity of thought. Intended outcomes should be transparent to participants. So whosoever has participated in your research, he should know, first of all, even before getting into the research, he should know why the research is being conducted. There are certain experiments which are done, which are blind experiments, where the researcher will not tell the participants that there's a research going on. That's okay, because that is the need of the hour at that point of time in the research. But even if after the research is conducted, The person should know, the participants who were there should know that why they were being, made part of the research. Safeguard. Vulnerable participants may need special care. So for instance, if you are doing a research on criminal minds, and there you are dealing with the people, the criminals in jail, right? So they are in such a vulnerable position that they should not be, their personal data, etc., should not be, set out in public. So any vulnerable participants, any people who do not want their data to be disclosed, should not be done that, right? Protect any harm to the environment, to the people, to the animal, etc. And now we will be seeing what are research ethics. I have given you a brief definition, but what is the concept? Why do we need research ethics when we conduct research? Personal code of conduct based on respect for one's self, others, and surroundings. So when you are going to do research, obviously you respect yourself, you want to cite some other person, and if you are citing them, that is showing that how you respect them, right? And is governed by the principles underpinning the way individuals or organizations ought to conduct themselves. These are the application of fundamental ethical principles. So what are those principles? Let us just see. There are three objectives of a research, when we do research, and the ethics that we have there. The first is to guard and protect human participants, their dignity, rights, and welfare. If they do not want their information to be disclosed in the public eye, you will not do that, right? You will do certain things for their welfare, their benefit, right? Keeping their rights in mind. And even if the participant at certain point of time, if he or she is in research, wants to withdraw from it, they can, because that's their personal choice, that's their personal right. Second objective, to make sure that research is directed in a manner that assists welfare of persons, groups, or civilization as a whole. So obviously, if you would have read research, some people do research for the betterment of the society. So when it comes to the betterment of the society, you should also see that how your research is helping the people, how it is helping the groups or the civilization as in the world as a whole. Third objective is to inspect particular research events and schemes for their ethical reliability. Am I doing, if I am testing a drug on someone, if I am testing a medicine on someone, is that medicine less harmful, right? Am I minimizing the harm? This is also what is the third objective that you should be, informed consent is really important. That you ask the person that, yes, I am going to make you a part of my research. Would you like to be a participant? That is an informed consent, and that should be there. Types of ethical issues. Number first is honesty. Honestly report data. You should not be biased. A researcher who's conducting a research should never be biased, because he wants to show that I conducted the research, there was this hypothesis, and I wanted to disprove it through my alternative hypothesis, right? So how can that be done? You should be the one who should be honestly reporting data. Data, the results which are there, the results that you get out of the research, methods that you are using, and procedures. So as we talked about, if you are using injection on someone, you're using a particular tool on some participant, right? Or maybe you are asking them some certain questions. Whatever methods and procedures you are using, you should quote them, you should cite them in your research, right? Being honest and not playing with them, being biased, right? Objectivity. Hence, we come to the second point, objectivity, which obviously means that you should be unbiased. Whatever research report, findings that are there, right? The design, the data analysis, its interpretation, you should never ever let your own personal opinions, your beliefs to come and overshadow, right, your research. So if you are doing a research on animal care, right, or if you are saying that stray dogs, let's just say for instance, you should not say your opinions, right? You should seek other people's opinion if you are collecting data from them, and you should not always cite people whose opinions or beliefs match with your own. You should be biased. You should see how many of people are the ones willing to help the stray dogs, how many of them don't, right? How many of of them, they do not even like stray dogs, etc. So you should not let your personal beliefs overshadow the research that you are doing. Integrity. Keep your promises and agreements. Act with sincerity. Strive for consistency of thought and action. So if you have said certain things that you are going to get this thing after, there are certain researchers who provide the other person with certain kinds of refreshment, certain kinds of gifts after the research. If you have promised that you are going to be, the one who will be with doing the work with full integrity, you will show that, right? Carefulness. Avoid careless errors and negligence. Carefully and critically examine your own work. That is like, whole thing basically is the one which rests on the pillar of ethics with objective things in mind. So even if we say carefulness, you should be careful that whatever you are doing is correct, right? The work of your peers, keep good records of research activities. So even if you're doing a minor, thing as well, minor activity as well, you should be the one who is recording, keeping a record of that very thing, that today I went there and I recorded this very thing, even if that's a minute stance which has been there. Openness. Share data, results, ideas, tools, resources. Be open to criticism and new ideas. So whenever you're going to conduct research, there must be people who will be, in favor of it, and some people will be there who will be against it. And you should be the one who should be open to criticism. You should be the one who, can get your paper published and be available to other people for the sake of, getting the information or the knowledge to, spread. Right? Respect for intellectual property. So even if you are citing, even if you have certain patents, copyrights, right, and other forms of intellectual property, you should cite that other person. If you are using Shakespeare as a source from some book, you should cite that very book in your research paper, the references or the works cited based on, the kind of referencing tool that you are using. Confidentiality, a very important thing here. If certain participants would not, or they do not like their information to be shared publicly, they do not even like their names to be taken out, you should be the one who should be supportive in this sense. You should maintain their confidential information with yourself, but yes, you can report the research findings there, right? Responsible publication. Publish in order to advance research and scholarship, and not just to advance your own career. That is not just to publish it for the sake of that paper being shown on your CV or your resume, right? Show it because you want to say that you want to contribute to the society, and that's why you are writing research papers. That's why you are doing research. Responsible mentoring. Help to educate, mentor, advise students, promote their welfare. So there are certain students who ask the people who are enrolled already in PhD, and those people help them understand the steps, that how you are supposed to go about with it, how you should, find a supervisor, etc. Right? So a person who is doing his or her research should also be the one who is responsibly mentoring people who do not know the P even of the PhD, right? Respect for colleagues. Respect your own colleagues even if you are collecting the data from them, and treat them fairly. Their opinions obviously will clash or can clash with your opinions, but you are supposed to jot those opinions down fairly on your wherever you are recording the data. Social responsibility. Strive to promote social good and mitigate social harms through research. So if you see, we have talked about various research paradigms. We also have talked about the transformatory paradigm, right? We have talked about that how in the transformatory paradigm, it is there to transform the society. Correct? So any social ill that you see in the society, you can do, or you can try to eradicate it. How? By using your research, through your research. Correct? Competence. Maintain and improve your own professional competence and expertise through lifelong education and learning, and promote competence in science as a whole. So if you are competent in a field, you should try to do your research in the upcoming times as well at a larger scale, right? You should tell other people to get enrolled in PhD, get a particular topic in their mind, whatever is set in their mind, mentoring plus you being competent, right? Legality. Know and obey relevant laws and institutional and governmental policies. So if or whenever you are doing your research, there are certain things, there are certain laws which are there as well for the part of PhD as well, right? So people who are plagiarizing content, like citing other people's content and calling them their own in their own thesis, or who have gotten their thesis written by some other person, we can take action against them as well, right, by the government. So you should be aware of the governmental policies, and you should be doing something, whatever you are doing, in the legal terms, right? Animal and human care. So if you are doing any research on the animals, you should be so careful. Same is the case with human property or human as subjects, as the people, as the participants in your research, right? When using them in research, do not conduct unnecessary or poorly designed animal experiments, and same is the case with the humans as well. So you should minimize the harms and the risks which come there with the experiment that you are doing, right? So this was an important topic from which every year a question is asked, right? So you should, in its entirety, we have covered the entire topic of research ethics. Now certain questions will be there which will be related to this thing as well only. So try to solve those questions and see if you still have any doubt, right? So the next question that we have here is, which of the following is susceptible to the issue of research ethics? Susceptible here means relevant. The answer here, pause your video, the answer here is option A, reporting of research findings. Why do we say that? When a person is reporting their research findings, this is first of all the last stage of research. Correct? So if even in the last stage of research you are lying, you have throughout your process used several means which were correct, but when it came to you proving your point, you reported the research findings according to your own personal beliefs or your opinions, that is wrong, right? So here the issue of research ethics is most susceptible to the reporting of research findings, because you are reporting whatever findings were being there, right? You are reporting them according to your own beliefs, and that should not be done. That is a big no. Correct? Next question we have here is, the issue of research ethics may be considered pertinent at which stage of research? The answer here, pause your videos if you want to see what is to read the question in its entirety. The answer here is option C, at the stage of data collection and interpretation, right? Pertinent, where is it the most? If you are collecting the data, right, and interpreting it according to your own systems and beliefs, that is where you are lacking the research ethics, right? So the issue of research ethics may be considered pertinent at the stage of data collection, because you can only collect data from people which match your views and opinions or interpretations, and you can interpret the data on your own, right? So you are collecting data, even if you're collecting data which has the 50-50 balance of yeses and nos, but you are just going to interpret the data which has the system, the value system that you believe in. That is wrong. The next question that we have here is, ethical norms in research or ethical norms in research do not involve guidelines for, pause your video. The answer here is option A, that is the thesis format. So when we talk about the thesis format, thesis format is not really mentioned. We have done the entire topic of research ethics. We did not talk about thesis format. Why? Because thesis format is something which comes with the styles of referencing. Correct? So, if a person is using MLA, APA, or Chicago style, that is where thesis format comes. There is a different, particular pattern by an institution, by an organization wherever you are studying from. They also have certain guidelines for the people who are doing their PhD, right? So these are the major three styles of referencing or the formatting parts which are there when you are trying to cite certain people when you are writing your dissertation or your thesis. So when it comes to the ethicality, when it comes to the research ethics part, these things are not involved there, right? But if we talk about the copyright, if we talk about the patents, or if we talk about the data sharing policy, which obviously contained confidential information, all these are the ones which are related to research ethics. Correct? Moving forward with the next question, research ethics has a direct connection more often with which stages of research? So read the question, read the options carefully, pause your video. The answer here for this question is option B. Problem formulation and reporting of research findings. There we see that there is a direct connection. Why? Because you are going to choose the population, you are going to choose the problem, the formulation, which cites with your own personal beliefs, your opinions, what you want to search, because you want to prove yourself, right. So you are going to formulate a problem which is based on your opinion, which can be a reason, that is okay, but you are reporting the research findings based on those very opinions, that is incorrect as well. So direct connection could be seen if we talk about the formulation and the reporting of research findings. Correct? The last question that we have for today's video is related to the research steps. So read this question and the steps carefully before you jump onto the answer, right? So pause your video, read this question carefully for around 1-2 minutes, and then reach out to a conclusion and an answer. The answer here for this question is option C. What is that? Problem formulation, hypothesis making, development of a research design, collection of data, data analysis, and formation of generalizations and conclusions. Let us just do things here, right? First of all, when we want to conduct a research, we should do it in a step-wise manner, because it is always logical in nature to do that. Correct? So you cannot reach out to a conclusion if you do not have a problem firstly at hand. So you need to have a problem, you need to collect the data based on that very problem, you need to formulate hypothesis. How is that, adjusted in the steps of a research? How you are supposed to do that in a research is what we are concerned with in the research steps. So this question is also really important from the examination point of view, because they give you such questions to see how well do you know the steps of research, how you are supposed to arrange those steps, right? So if any one of you wants to enroll for PhD, you all should know, first of all, what should be the problem, how am I going to see the research, how am I going to collect the data, right? So let us just see. Step number 1 we have here is the formulation of a research problem and its objectives. So whenever you are going to conduct any research, right, you all should be knowing the problem. Right? So any research if you want to do, you should first of all know what made you think that this is a problem. What are the objectives? If you want to see that, the leaves in my front yard, the garden's front yard, all of them change colors in a particular season, and you want to observe that, how are you going to do that? Because you want to see, first of all, what is the problem. You are going to study the phenomena. Then you are going to see the objectives, that if I research on this very problem, right, these will be my objectives, that I want to see why do the leaves in my front yard, right, they change the colors in a particular season. Second thing we have here is critical literature review. You should be the one who is reviewing the literature. If you say reviewing literature, it means that you are reading certain journals related to that phenomena. You are reading certain book reviews if there are any. And if I'm saying literature review, it does not really mean the literature that we have in general. It talks about even the newspapers, online articles, whatsoever would from wherever you can gather the information of that very phenomena. Correct? Coming back to the third step that we have, in the third step, you are going to formulate the hypothesis. Now, when we talk about the formulation of the hypothesis, first of all, you all should know, and we have done this in one of the videos, that how hypothesis is something which is a tentative statement, temporary statement, which the researcher wants to test, right? And we have two types of research hypothesis. One is null, right, which is denoted by H0, and the other one is alternative. Correct? And now comment down below and let me know which one of these two hypotheses is the one which you know and you should know is the one which is always tested. The hypothesis which is always tested is which one? Comment down below and let me know, right? So this is the one which the researcher wants to disprove, and he wants to accept this one, right? And he wants to prove this one, right? And how will that be proven? If he proves the null hypothesis, if he rejects the null hypothesis, only then he will be able to accept the alternative, and vice versa, right? So your hypothesis will be formed after the problem. So problem, objectives, you will be reading books, and then you will see that now I want to do research on this very thing. And for the research part, you are supposed to formulate the hypothesis. Then we have step 4, which says preparing the research design. How are you going to go about with the research? Are you going to collect the data in quantitative terms or qualitative? Which means that are you going to collect the data which is measurable or which is subjective or has opinions, etc. in that? Correct? Or are you going to do experiments? Is your research design going to be experimental in nature? Is it going to be descriptive, that you are just going to describe the particular phenomena? Right? So this is where you will see that what type of research you are going to do, what kind of design you are going to choose based on that very type of research, right? Then we have step number 5. Step 5 says determining the sample design. Now, if I say determining the sample design, which means sample will be drawn out of the sample and population. So, this is the population correct? And out of which I'm going to draw out a sample, which will be certain people only. So this will be the sample. And whenever I'm going to do the research, I won't be able to do the research on the entire population. Hence, I'm choosing a sample which is a mixed, a population with the characteristics of all the entire population. So I'm going to choose people which have the similar characteristics of the population. And when I do research on this very part, this small sect that is a sample of my population, then I'm going to generalize it. Correct? So first of all, here we will be choosing certain kinds of sampling techniques. Correct? So there are two types of sampling techniques. You can also comment down below and let me know what are those two types of sampling techniques which are there in research. If you know the sub parts, also write them. But subcategories, the two broad categories, what are those? I want to know that, right? Then we have step number 6, developing data collection instrument and collecting data. Now, after your research is done, you want to collect the data. You have seen the population, you want to choose the sample, right? And from sample collection, you have collected the data, which takes us to the 6th step, which is there, right? So you are going to collect the data from the sample, maybe using surveys, using questionnaires, right? Using mails, etc. So how are you going to collect the data is the one thing that is in the step 6 that we have for research. Coming back to step number 7, data analysis. Now you see, you all must be pretty sure by this time that you know how the steps are being, there in the research, that you cannot jump from one thing to the other, right? So what are we going to do in step 7? In step 7, we are going to analyze the data, right? After collecting the data through the usage of surveys, questionnaires, you're going to see, is there a pattern which is there? Am I going to test it, right? I'm going to see how many of people like watching the Big Bang Theory, right? So there will be 2 divisions, and the divisions can be based on your preferences, on your research, right? So there will be people who like it, who don't like it, right? So you are going to do a comparison, you are going to analyze the data using certain tools, right? Then in the last step, report preparation or thesis, article or paper writing. So in the last step, what are you going to do? You are going to simply report the findings of your research. And here, this is a step that we have talked about where the research ethics are really important, because you cannot report the findings in a negative manner or what you believe in, right? So report the findings, which can be done using any kind of format that you are going to use, MLA, APA, Chicago style, right? So all of these things that you are going to use is the one which will be reported by you, right? And those findings, all those findings should be objective in nature, which means that these findings should not be biased. Correct? So you should report the findings based on the research ethics as well. Correct? So these were certain steps that I wanted you all to jot down when it comes to the research steps part, right? How you are formulating a problem, how you are seeing the hypothesis, the data collection, the data analysis, etc. right? So keep these things in mind as well, because these two concepts that we did today in this class, they are really important from the examination point of view, and you need not, study it entirely differently. If you would have seen this video, I think all of your concepts regarding these three concepts will be clear, right? So we will again be meeting in some other video with certain more concepts which are important for your last minute revision. Till then, keep on studying, keep on smiling. We will be meeting. Thank you so much.